Nothing unusual. I made a video that was really controversial, got a lot of pushback, so here I am. No, in all seriousness, I do enjoy making the more controversial videos because I think these are topics that a lot of people are shy to talk about because they know that they're gonna get a lot of hate and a lot of disagreement. And I don't think that's a good way to approach things. I think the stuff that is controversial is the most important for us to be discussing. And I would almost feel like it's a disservice to you guys if I was avoiding these topics. So I made a video called Stop Buying Single Rabbits, and the video was basically me explaining why it's better just to get a bonded pair of rabbits rather than getting a single rabbit and then eventually in the plans getting another single rabbit, or just planning to keep a single rabbit for its entire life. Now, like most controversial issues, this isn't black and white, and there definitely is another side to things. I do have another video talking about times when it's better to have a single rabbit, but in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys 8 different scenarios where I think it's actually better for the rabbit to live alone. Again, I personally feel like 99.99999% of rabbits should be in a bonded pair and they would thrive so much better. But these are scenarios where I think actually having a single rabbit can work. Oh my goodness. Obviously, we all have our personal biases, and I do my best to not let my personal bias overshadow my channel, but there are a couple of videos I made, like the video Stop Buying Single Rabbits, where I definitely am a little bit more biased and trying to speak my own opinions, which I think are just as valid, and I do want to share them, but I have no issue sharing the counter side too. Anyways, let's get started. The first time you should have a single rabbit is if you have inadequate savings, specifically vet savings. It's no joke that rabbits can be very expensive because they have to go to exotic vets, and when you have a bonded pair of rabbits, they're not necessarily more likely to get sick more often. In fact, you could argue that they're less likely to get sick because they have each other and are less stressed and they're less destructive and blah blah blah. But if they do get sick, it's very likely that the one rabbit is going to pass it on to the others. When it comes to vets, you're going to be paying twice as much for the appointments, twice as much for the follow-ups, twice as much for any tests and diagnoses, and twice as much for any medication. And again, this is all very expensive, and if you don't think you have adequate savings to care for 2 rabbits, it's really not ideal. So in that case, I would say that it's better to have a single rabbit. Another time where it might be better to have a single rabbit is if you were extremely busy. Now, I know this is a little bit contradictory because the main benefit of having a bonded pair of rabbits is that they don't have to rely on you for their social interaction, and not to mention all the benefits of them actually being able to communicate with another rabbit in ways that they can't communicate with you. But there is a downside to that, and if you are very busy, bonded pairs often need a lot of monitoring. A lot of the times this is very minute, sometimes just a little extra monitoring during feeding or mating season, or if you notice signs of there being a little bit more spots, you might have to take action before it breaks out into something more serious. And if you're very busy, it's just possible that you might miss these signs. Also, the process of actually bonding 2 rabbits is very difficult and very time consuming, and if you're not doing it properly, it's very easy for one or both of the rabbits to become extremely injured. So if you're very busy and you already have a single rabbit, it might be good to just keep it that way, because if you're introducing a bonded pair, especially initially, you're gonna have to be doing a lot of observing and a lot of maintenance and just checking in a lot, and if you don't have time to do that or you don't feel comfortable, maybe it's not ideal. Another situation where it might be better to have your rabbit live alone is free roam rabbits. For one, if your rabbits are free roaming, they likely are already getting a lot of their social interaction from you. Again, I would argue that a human can't provide the same level of social interaction another rabbit could, but if they are free roam, they're getting significantly more than they would be if they were in a pen the majority of the day. Also, when it comes to free roam rabbits, the way you have things set up is very personal to that individual rabbit, and if you're adding a second rabbit to that equation, it's very possible that the things that you did with your first rabbit aren't going to work with your second. For example, maybe your first rabbit is really good at not going behind big pieces of furniture and not chewing baseboards, so you've had to do very little rabbit proofing, and your second rabbit might be extremely destructive, which might just make it impossible for you to free roam. Also, the bonding process can be a little bit more difficult with a free roam rabbit, especially if you have a small space and your rabbits pretty much claimed your entire apartment or flat. It's going to be very difficult for you to find the neutral territory and for you to find a place to house that second rabbit where the second rabbit doesn't feel overwhelmed. So if you have a free roam rabbit, there's just a lot that goes into bonding a rabbit and getting a second rabbit, so it's definitely something that you should consider. Now, you definitely can free roam bonded pairs of rabbits, and a lot of people do it. I'm just saying that it can be a little bit more difficult, especially in a situation where you already have a single rabbit and you're trying to introduce another rabbit to the equation. It can just take a little bit longer and mean a lot more changes on your end. Another scenario where it might be better for the rabbit to live alone is with senior rabbits or rabbits with health problems. For one, you really don't want to be trying to bond these rabbits. Now, there's so many great examples of senior rabbits who have a younger bunny companion, and that younger bunny actually helps guide them and things like that. I actually had one of these scenarios in my reacting to rabbit enclosures video, where there was a very senior bunny and a younger bunny, and he was saying that the older bunny was blind and deaf, and the younger bunny was actually able to guide the older one around, which I think is absolutely beautiful. But in a scenario where an older rabbit or a rabbit with health problems has already lived alone, going through the bonding process can be extremely overwhelming for that rabbit. Additionally, a lot of health problems get worse from stress, so obviously bonding is not a great scenario. And in bonding, there is likely to be some fights and some spats, and if your sick or senior rabbit can't defend themselves, that's not really fair. Also, there's not that much known about rabbits, so if you have a rabbit you suspect is very sick, it's very likely it could pass that on to the second rabbit, so obviously don't do bonding. Also, when it comes to senior rabbits or rabbits who have very chronic illnesses, they might just want to be alone and they might not want to have to deal with another rabbit in their space, and sometimes it's better to just let them live out their lives as peacefully as they can. Another time that I think it's better for your rabbit to live alone is if you are planning to move. Now, a lot of the times when you move and you're introducing a completely new territory, the bond can become very unstable and you pretty much have to go through the entire bonding process again. Not to mention, the moving process is very stressful, so if you already have a rabbit and you're considering getting a second, maybe wait until after your move. Another time you shouldn't get a second rabbit is if you aren't prepared to house two rabbits separately. As I discussed in my initial video, there's no guarantee that two rabbits can bond. Now, I genuinely believe that the far majority of rabbits are going to be able to bond with another rabbit, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every two rabbits are going to be able to bond. What I'm saying is if you have a rabbit and you have a pool of like 1,000 other rabbits to choose from, it's very likely that that one rabbit is going to find a match. But if you just have two rabbits and you put them together, it's not that likely that they're going to be a match. Kind of like people. So if you have a first rabbit and you aren't prepared to house two rabbits separately, you really shouldn't be getting a second rabbit. Additionally, even after bonding, it's very possible that they could fall out, and there's stages in life where they just might need to be housed separately, and I would argue that just should be what rabbit care entails. If you aren't prepared to do that, then you really shouldn't get a second rabbit. Another time it might be better for you to not get a second rabbit, or at least postpone getting a second rabbit, is if you're a new bunny owner. I think rabbit behavior is very nuanced, and no matter how many videos you watch or how many articles you read, there's certain things that you can't pick up on unless you've had rabbits and your specific rabbit for a certain period of time. There's so many things that I'll notice. I'll be like, oh, Sachin is so stressed right now, and none of my family can pick up on it. And there's not even any specific behaviors that he does, because a lot of rabbit stuff is very subtle. It's just me, because I've had him for almost 4 years, I'm able to pick up on cues like that. And I think those are things that are difficult for a new rabbit owner to do. So when it comes to actually going through the bonding process, I think it's very easy to miss certain signs, and you might think that your rabbit is very calm when in reality they're very stressed or something like that. Another thing is that bonds do have the potential to fall out, and if you're a new rabbit owner and you don't notice the little signs immediately, it's very possible that there's going to be a huge fight, and if you're new, it might be really stressful and you might not know how to react or go about rebonding them. The last scenario where it might be better for you not to get a second rabbit is if you are very young. For one, the bonding process is very difficult, and again, I think when you're very young, it just can be very overwhelming, both physically and emotionally. I also don't think people realize how much extra cleaning it is. When you have a single rabbit and you're introducing another rabbit to that space, they can smell the rabbit and they're gonna feel like their territory is being threatened. So litter habits are pretty much out the door. You're gonna have to be doing super intense full cleanouts pretty much every single day, and the room is still going to look filthy. Trust me, I know from experience. So if you're very young, I just think all of that can be very overwhelming. Also, again, bonded pair of rabbits do have the potential to fight and do a lot of damage. And if you're very young, it might be difficult for you to get your rabbits to the vet in time if you can't drive, or if you're at home and your parents are at work. So situations like that, and if you are very young and you're one of the younger rabbit owners, it might just be better for you to have a single rabbit for now. So I hope that brought up some interesting points. Those were 8 cases where it might be better for your rabbit to live alone. Again, personally, I'm very biased and I do want rabbits to be in bonded pairs. However, at the end of the day, I do realize that all y'all are the people that are doing a good job of taking care of rabbits, and I know you are the people who are actually researching and putting in the time and energy and the effort to actually take proper care of your rabbits. And even if you could only have a single rabbit, I would argue that one rabbit saved is better than no rabbits. So even though I think it's way better to have a bonded pair of rabbits, I don't think having a single rabbit is necessarily bad, especially if it means that that rabbit gets to be saved and gets to have an amazing life. So I hope this provided an alternate perspective. I'm not going to stop inserting in my own personal beliefs and opinions in my videos. However, I do want to highlight the other side and the other perspective. So if there's ever anything I say that you disagree with, be sure to comment down below and I'd be happy to make a video with your perspective. Thank y'all so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.